Okay, so now that the dust has settled, I think it's time for us to sit back and have a discussion about how Real Madrid beat Liverpool in the final of the Champions League. But before we do, let's talk about the things that happened before the game. First of all, Jurgen Klopp's side headed into this encounter as firm favourites. Many pundits, naturally a lot from the UK, believed that the Reds were a far stronger side than their Spanish counterparts. And if we look at the route to the final for both teams, Real Madrid did have it rough and conceded quite a few goals. One of the main reasons why Carlo Ancelotti's men booked a place in the final is because of the team spirit and their never-say-never attitude, which was for all to see in the win over Manchester City in the second leg of the semi-final. Liverpool, on the other hand, had been the team to beat, both in England and in Europe. They lost the Premier League title race by the slenderest of margins, but did manage to win both the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. Headed into the encounter at the Stade de France, the Merseysiders were trying to become only the second English team to win a European treble, although we should mention that Manchester United's treble included a Premier League title as well. But then again, this is a discussion for another day. In the end though, everything that matters is how a team plays when the time comes, and it was the Spaniards who ended up winning the encounter and in the process lifted their 14th Champions League title. If you look at Madrid's performances throughout the competition, this was one of the most surprising end results. The newly crowned Spanish champions did make things difficult for themselves throughout the competition, but their sheer tenacity got them out of the woods each time. Ahead of the game, we knew that Liverpool were going to dominate proceedings and take more initiative, and that was there for everyone to see. So let's start breaking down this game piece by piece and see whether Madrid winning was an anomaly or not. Team formation. Both teams went for a 4-3-3 formation, something that has worked effectively for them. For Liverpool, Luis Diaz was given the nod ahead of Diogo Jota, while Thiago Alcantara was given the task to keep things moving in the middle of the park. The Spaniard has been doing well on the left side of midfield, so we pretty much knew what Liverpool had planned to do. For Madrid, Federico Valverde was given a wider role than usual, with Casemiro once again getting the nod ahead of Eduardo Camavinga. David Alaba and Eder Militao were the preferred defensive pairing, and you can see why those two got the nod, keeping in mind the crossing accuracy of the likes of Andrew Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. First half statistics. As expected, Liverpool enjoyed more of the ball, even though the possession numbers weren't that odd. As you can see, the Reds had 52% of the possession. However, what did make the difference was how both teams used their time on the ball. In total, Liverpool tested Thibaut Courtois 10 times, with 5 shots reaching their target. Sadio Mane also hit the woodwork after his shot was initially saved by the Belgian. If we look at this particular metric a little deeper, Liverpool had 7 shots inside the box, whereas Madrid only had 1. Thibaut Courtois had to be called upon 5 times in the first period, while Alisson did not have much work to do. These aforementioned stats clearly show that Liverpool were the more dominating side of the two. As expected, Carlo Ancelotti was far less adventurous. Los Blancos were not too keen to take the game to Liverpool. Throughout the game, both Luka Modric and Toni Kroos kept dropping deep, very close to the centre-backs, which allowed the full-backs to press ahead. The fact that both men are very calm in possession was the reason why the Spaniards did not lose the ball in a dangerous area. Exposing the Reds centrally was never an option, so the width provided by the fullbacks was much needed. Both Dani Carvajal and Ferland Mendy had ample space to work with. What helped further was Fede Valverde's narrow positioning, which allowed Carvajal to make deeper runs into the channel. Second half. The second half was pretty much the same in terms of how both teams approached the encounter. Liverpool continued enjoying dominance, testing Courtois 4 times and had 8 shots inside the box. The Belgian was forced into making 4 saves, all of which were top-notch. The Reds once again outpassed their rivals, and both Salah and Mane had great chances which they could not take. However, despite dominating in pretty much every stat under the sun, Liverpool did not come good on a stat that matters the most: goals. We'll go back to our previous assessment where we spoke about fullbacks enjoying width. In the build-up to the goal, Modric dropped deep and played a long ball to Carvajal. Valverde opted to stay wide during the build-up, and the Uruguayan drove forward with the ball, managed to find himself inside the box, and delivered a pinpoint cross, which was dispatched by Vinicius Jr. quite easily. However, if we break down the goal, some blame has to fall on Trent Alexander-Arnold, who lost his marker. Vinicius simply had to slip behind the England international for the easiest of tap-ins. And while one goal in such a game is not always supposed to end things then and there, we have to admit that the Reds did not take their chances. If we take a look at this shot map, it's clear that Liverpool had more than enough chances to at least take the game to extra time. However, it was not meant to be. But credit where it's due, Real Madrid were defensively very strong, were never beaten in one-on-one situations, nullified the crossing danger presented by Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Luis Diaz has been a handful since arriving at Anfield. However, this time around, the Colombian was nullified by Carvajal. And then, how can we not talk about Thibaut Courtois? The Belgian has had his ups and downs in Spain, but he put on a commanding performance. 4 amazing saves denied Jurgen Klopp his second Champions League trophy. So, what lesson did we learn from this? To start off, Liverpool might be considered the best team on the planet, but being great on paper can only get you so far. It sounds like a cliche, but how can you consider a team the best in the world if it doesn't make it count when it matters the most? Secondly, Real Madrid were never given enough credit. This is a team that, despite not being as strong as it normally has been, managed to reach a final and went all the way under a manager whose coaching acumen has come under a lot of scrutiny in recent months. At the end of the day, it was a battle of pragmatism, and Carlo Ancelotti and Real Madrid, 2 different elements with great Champions League history, prevailed.